The goal on the Alabama Football Report is to get to 18,000 subscribers. We are 382 away as of filming. Help us get there and continue to grow the Alabama Football Report by hitting that sub button right now. As you have come to expect as of late, we're talking transfer portal again on today's show because, well, that's what's most intriguing right now for the Crimson Tide. Let's begin with the latest on Isaiah Hamilton, namely, he will not be coming to the Crimson Tide. He was supposed to take a visit to Alabama this past weekend. He ended up canceling that visit on Thursday evening and then committed to Ole Miss on Friday, so ended up not being in the cards for Alabama as they still continue to try to search for help in the cornerback room. Really, the secondary room in general remains profoundly thin. They are not done from that perspective. Several more players, recruits that are in the mix to end up at Alabama. They're trying to add some more depth in the new era of college football, the NIL transfer portal, chaos, free agency that we get, and we've become mostly accustomed to. The other notable name I want to check in here, and then we'll get to some more names in a little bit, is Kahlil Jacobs. Now, he was supposed to take a visit on Saturday. He has rescheduled that visit to this coming weekend, so delaying it a little bit there. Other schools he has visited, Auburn and Missouri, remain some of the top contenders potentially there for Jacobs, who, of course, entered the portal originally when it first opened up, then said, actually, I'm going to come back to South Alabama, and then re-entered it again after the spring, so gave the new staff a chance. I guess didn't like enough of what he saw. He had been heavily linked to Alabama the first time around, but this time, maybe it doesn't make as much sense timing. I was getting to that here in a little bit in a moment. But will Alabama end up landing Kahlil Jacobs? Y for yes, N for no. It is the pinned comment on this video. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Let's look at the linebacker room right now for the Crimson Tide. Jihaad Campbell, Deontae, Lawson, obviously, I was a bit surprised he came back. Glad he did. Ended up working out pretty well there. And some depth, Dixon, Jones, Jefferson, Ross. And remember, of course, that the Bandit and Wolf roles also have players who can play on the inside at that interior, more typical off-ball linebacker role than the more edge rusher linebacker role that some of those guys will end up playing. And it's because of the kind of lengthy depth, not just right now, but also what is set to come to the Crimson Tide in 2025 in a deep linebacker recruiting class that makes me think it's a little bit less likely this time around that Jacobs ends up coming to Alabama. They don't need linebackers at the moment. I would not be mad if Jacobs ends up committing because depth is always great. But if you're Kahlil Jacobs and you're moving on from South Alabama and you've got interest from SEC programs, do you want to settle into a backup role or go somewhere where you think you have a better chance of playing? I think in most cases, it ends up being the latter more so than the former there. And because we have to go, 5 recruits at linebacker in 2025, knowing that number might drop a little bit, the math is not mathing for me. Even if you lose Campbell, Lawson to the NFL, whatever, lose a transfer portal player or two, that's a lot of off-ball linebackers. I don't know if Jacobs is, even if Bama staff wants that type of depth, given where they have other needs on the roster. And of course, that leads the way with cornerback. First up is DeShawn Jones, the Wake Forest corner, who took a visit this past weekend with the Crimson Tide. Certainly sounds like that went well. In fact, the On3 recruiting prediction machine, or the transfer portal machine, I guess, putting in a prediction, one of the sites, for Jones to Alabama. He had visits planned for both LSU and Michigan State, and in the biggest indication that he might end up with the Crimson Tide, those visits are no longer being planned. When you see the visits being canceled, that's a sign, hey, this is probably, at least very likely, to go down. Jones played a decent amount of snaps last year for Wake Forest. A little bit feast or famine in the coverage, but how many times on this show in the past month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, of 2 months, whatever, we talk about, hey, you don't have proven depth in the secondary. DeShawn Jones with 290 snaps in 2022 and 575 in 2023 instantly becomes one of your most experienced corners. Frankly, in an ideal world, one of the young guys plays so well, Jones relegated to the Trey Amos role. He's the top backup who had transferred in the previous season. And if he has to play, at least he's played snaps at a Power 5 level and shown plenty of promise in the process. Now, we've got the Alabama football rookie jerseys for you available via Fanatics. That's J.C. Latham, Kool-Aid McKinstry as two of the entire Alabama football group. Simply head over to chatsports.com/NFL jersey and then just search for whatever player you're looking for. Maybe it's Terrion Arnold. Maybe it's a Jace McClellan jersey. They've got you covered. Chatsports.com/NFL jersey. Dallas Turner, of course, included there as well. Link will be in the comments and the description of today's show. It's chatsports.com/NFL jersey. One note of a visit that is no longer set to happen. That is Kobee Minor. He was briefly, at least, expected to take a visit to Alabama. He will now no longer be taking that visit to Alabama. It was a very quick snip-snap from that perspective for Minor. The expectation of DeShawn Jones coming in clearly is a factor here. Again, follow the track record of, hey, visit, not going to visit, etc. Makes me think that Jones is your likely option here for the Crimson Tide, and Minor will end up going elsewhere. What is your confidence level in Alabama working and winning via the transfer portal? Scale it for me from 1 to 10 in the comment section of today's show. Do want to mention another transfer portal target, King Mack. First off, elite name. Dude's name is King, and last name is Mack. That's really impressive. From Miami, Florida, originally did visit Alabama this past weekend. Of note, he has not played very much for Penn State. This is not a highly touted or highly impactful, I should say, player. 3 tackles, was targeted twice, allowed 1 catch for 9 yards. We don't even need to do the completion percentage. That's very easy math for everybody out there. Was a top 100-ish recruit coming out of St. Thomas Aquinas down in Florida. I think he was 87th or something, in 88th, whatever it was, in the composite rankings. Could be some positional flex here for King Mack and for Alabama, which I think that versatile depth is something this Tide team is clearly in the market for. Spent the majority of his snaps at free safety. Did play some in the box, did play some in the slot, and that is clear. Free safety, I think you could do some box and nickel stuff for you, and that maybe that overhang hybrid nickel corner safety, even sometimes some linebacker reps roll, husky, whatever, is going to be key for Alabama. But safety depth is needed since you did lose a couple players into the portal. We are not done talking transfer portal on today's show. Geno VanDeMark, who we had mentioned that the day he went in the portal, hey, this is a name to monitor. No visit scheduled yet, but lots of buzz in favor of Alabama for the Michigan State offensive lineman, or at least soon-to-be former Michigan State offensive lineman. As a reminder, Chris Kapelovich coached VanDeMark at Michigan State, so there is that natural connection between the player and the current Alabama offensive line coach there. And remember, you are in the market for backup center depth because you lost James Brockermeyer to TCU in the portal. VanDeMark has played a little bit over the course of his collegiate career, about 500 snaps from that perspective for the Michigan State offensive lineman. 56.5, run block grade there. 2 hits, 6 hurries. I think what you're thinking here is interior offensive line depth. In general, and this is always a good thing, this current offensive line coach makes sure that everyone can snap. Because you need to have that break in case of emergency of, oh no, we're down 3 linemen in a freak accident, 2 guys stepped on each other and rolled their ankles. Got to have your 3rd guy, your 4th guy, able to snap as well. I think VanDeMark could add competition. I don't think he'd be a starter. We'll see what really is going on with Parker Brailsford. Didn't do really anything in the spring there. But you don't have experienced depth on the interior. You have Booker, Brailsford, Roberts. If all 3 of those guys are healthy, I think you're in great shape. Alinian, Casey Poe, I have long-term upside hopes for, but hey, he's a true freshman. He's really ready to go. Ionata, Sanders, Montgomery. There's less than 60 snaps, something like that, 80 snaps, whatever it is, combined between your backup interior offensive linemen. You need to have more pieces available there. Some other schools who have been interested in VanDeMark so far: Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Arkansas, South Carolina, Duke, Arizona State. So mostly top-end Power 5 programs. I mean, not, Georgia, whatever, but all teams that you figure are bowl game or even fringe playoff contenders there. Makes sense for Bama to have interest as well. That is the end of today's video. If you made it all the way through it, you are a real one. So spam real one in the comments section.